My name is Jason Carter, and for nearly a decade, my life revolved around one dream: building a startup from the ground up. I wasn't in it for fame or luxury. What drove me was a belief that I could create something useful, something that genuinely made people's lives easier. For years, that belief kept me going through exhaustion, setbacks, and doubt. Back in college, I met Elliot Brooks. If you asked me then, I would have said he was my best friend. He was everything I wasn't. Outgoing, charismatic, able to network with strangers like it was second nature. Where I stumbled over my words, Elliot commanded a room. Where I obsessed over debugging code at 2 a.m., Elliot was dreaming big, selling visions of the future. We made a good team. I built, he pitched. And when we combined those strengths, our idea came alive. That idea was LocalLink, a platform designed to give small businesses the kind of tools big corporations took for granted. Inventory management, online storefronts, customer engagement, everything bundled into one easy-to-use system. The mom-and-pop shops who struggled to adapt to the digital age, we wanted to help them survive. It started in his garage. Dusty folding tables, second-hand monitors, whiteboards stained with half-erased ideas. We coded late into the night, living on pizza, instant noodles, and caffeine. When servers crashed, we pulled all-nighters. When landlords threatened eviction, we scraped together every cent we could find. My parents worried about me. Friends drifted away. But Ellie was always there, grinning, clapping me on the back, saying, "This is the grind, Jason. One day we'll laugh about this." And I believe him. Years passed, and slowly, the impossible became real. We convinced a handful of small businesses to try LocalLink, then a few more. They liked it. They spread the word. Soon, we weren't chasing clients. They were calling us. Investors who once brushed us off now wanted meetings. The startup that began in a garage was about to explode. That was when everything changed. At first, it was subtle. Elliot started taking investor calls without me. He'd say it was just to test the waters or save me time. He'd go to networking events solo, saying my energy was better spent on product development. I didn't question it. That was our dynamic. After all, me in the trenches, him in the spotlight. But then the documents started showing up. Contracts signed by Elliot alone. Filings with his name, but not mine. Investors reaching out to him directly, like I was just some anonymous engineer. And then the letter arrived. A plain envelope from the state business registrar. Inside was a notice that made my stomach turn. It said that LocalLink LLC's ownership structure had been updated. According to the filing, Elliot Brooks was now listed as the sole managing member. My name wasn't just missing, it had been erased. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake, a clerical error. Surely the state made a mix-up. But when I confronted Elliot, the truth hit harder than any error ever could. I stormed into our shared office, letter in hand. "What the hell is this?" Elliot didn't even flinch. He leaned back in his chair, flashing the same confident grin he used to win over investors. "Jason, calm down. It's not as bad as it looks." "Not as bad as it looks." I snapped. "It says I'm not even part of the company anymore." His grin sharpened into something colder. "Jason, you've always been the builder, not the businessman. The investors want leadership, not someone who hides behind a computer screen. Honestly, it's cleaner this way. You'll still get something when we sell, but ownership, that complicates things." My chest tightened. "You can't just erase me. We started this together." That's when he leaned forward, eyes glinting with arrogance. "Prove it." And that was when I understood. He thought he'd covered his tracks. The original partnership agreement we signed in college, the one where we agreed to 50-50 ownership, wasn't filed with the state. Elliot had lost his copy, and he was betting I didn't have mine. I'll admit it, I panicked. Elliot knew me well. He knew I wasn't organized, that my office was a disaster zone of half-filled notebooks, old receipts, and dusty boxes. He was confident because he knew my weakness, but he underestimated me. That night, I tore my home office apart. Piles of paper covered the floor. Boxes from college I hadn't opened in years were scattered everywhere. Every failed prototype, every forgotten receipt, Every note scrawled at 3 a.m. I dug through it all. For hours, I found nothing. Frustration built until I nearly convinced myself Elliot was right, that he'd finally outmaneuvered me. And then, at the very bottom of a cardboard box buried under old textbooks, I saw it, a faded manila folder. My hands shook as I pulled it out. Inside, on crisp paper slightly yellow with age, was the original signed partnership agreement. Jason Carter and Elliot Brooks, 50-50 owners of LocalLink, notarized and witnessed. Binding. Ironclad. I stared at Elliot's signature, bold and permanent next to mine. He thought he could erase me. He thought he could bury the past. But paper doesn't lie. And soon, neither would he, because I was going to put this document in front of a judge. When I found the signed partnership agreement, my first reaction was relief so overwhelming it nearly broke me. I sat on the floor, manila folder clutched against my chest, shaking like I'd just surfaced from drowning. I couldn't stop staring at Elliot's bold signature next to mine. Proof. Validation. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't disposable. But relief quickly hardened into rage. This wasn't some innocent misunderstanding. Elliot had deliberately tried to erase me from the company I helped build brick by brick. He didn't just want more credit. He wanted it all. The next morning, I walked into our shared office with the agreement tucked neatly into my bag. My heart was hammering, but I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to let Elliot manipulate me into silence. He was sitting at his desk when I walked in, scrolling through emails like he owned the place. He barely looked up. Morning. I dropped the folder on his desk. Explain this. He raised an eyebrow, opening the folder casually like he already knew what was inside. But when his eyes landed on the signatures, the mask slipped for just a fraction of a second. I caught it, the flicker of panic. Then, as fast as it appeared, it was gone, replaced by a smirk. Wow, he said, leaning back in his chair. You actually kept it. Of course I did. I shot back. You think I'd just forget the most important agreement of my life? Elliot shrugged, utterly unbothered. Doesn't matter. The state filings have me as sole managing member. Investors already see me as the face of LocalLink. You showing up with a dusty old piece of paper won't change the narrative. That dusty old piece of paper is legally binding. I snapped. And when a judge sees this, you're going to lose everything you tried to steal. For a moment, the smirk faltered. Then he chuckled, shaking his head like I was some naive child. You really don't get it, Jason. Court battles aren't about who's right. They're about who looks better, who has the money, who has the narrative. You're just the coder. The guy in the hoodie nobody knows. I'm the face, the voice. Investors trust me. You think they'll back you in a courtroom showdown? Please. The arrogance in his tone was staggering. He really believed he'd already won. I clenched my fists. We'll see what the judge thinks. That earned me a cold, humorless laugh. Fine. Lawyer up, Jason. But don't say I didn't warn you when this all blows up in your face. That night, I reached out to a lawyer. Her name was Monica Patel, and she came highly recommended by one of my dad's old friends. When I explained my situation, she didn't flinch. Jason, she said firmly, this is exactly why contract exists. That agreement is your lifeline. As long as it's properly signed and witnessed, Elliot doesn't stand a chance. But we'll need to be careful. Guys like him, they'll try every dirty trick in the book before they admit defeat. Hearing those words steadied me. For the first time in weeks, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I had a fighting chance. Over the next few weeks, things escalated. Elliot doubled down on his campaign to erase me. He cut off my access to company bank accounts, tried to revoke my email privileges, and even went as far as telling employees I was stepping away to focus on other projects. Every move he made was designed to isolate me, to make it seem like I was irrelevant. But the whole time, I kept quiet. I let him dig his own grave, documenting every email, every change, every manipulation. Monica guided me through the process, helping me prepare a case so airtight even Elliot's silver tongue couldn't wiggle free. The tension between us grew unbearable. Every time we crossed paths, his smug confidence was like a slap in the face. But underneath it, I saw something else, a flicker of doubt he couldn't hide. He knew I had the contract. He knew I wasn't backing down. And soon, he'd know exactly what it felt like to underestimate the guy in the hoodie, because the courtroom was waiting. And this time, the spotlight would be on him. The day of the hearing felt surreal. I stood outside the courthouse, clutching the leather binder that held my lifeline, the original signed partnership agreement. My stomach churned, my palms were sweaty, and for a brief moment, I wondered if Elliot was right. What if the judge didn't care? What if this all came down to who looked like a leader? Breathe. Monica said firmly, placing a hand on my shoulder. She was calm, focused, her sharp black suit perfectly pressed. You have the truth. That's stronger than any performance Elliot can put on. Inside, the courtroom was buzzing with quiet chatter. A few employees from LocalLink had shown up out of curiosity. Even a couple of investors sat in the back, their expressions unreadable. Elliot had invited them, no doubt expecting to parade his victory. And then Elliot walked in. He was dressed like he was heading to a Fortune 500 board meeting. Tailored suit, perfect tie, every hair in place. He carried himself with that same magnetic confidence that had always made people believe in him. When his eyes met mine, he smirked, as if to say, "This is already over." The judge entered, and the room fell silent. Elliot's attorney went first, painting a picture of a hard-working visionary unfairly burdened by a junior partner who had contributed little beyond technical support. He described me as someone who was more contractor than co-founder, a quiet coder who'd been compensated for my time, but was never truly integral to the company's leadership. Every word made my blood boil. Then it was Monica's turn. She stood, calm and precise, and began dismantling their narrative piece by piece. She outlined my role in developing LocalLink from day one, listing the hours, the prototypes, the client meetings I attended. She painted me not as a shadow, but as the backbone of the entire operation. Finally, the judge turned to me. "Mr. Carter, do you have anything to submit?" My hands trembled slightly as I rose, binder in hand. I walked to the front, opened it, and pulled out the document that Elliot had so confidently believed no longer existed. "This," I said, my voice steadied and I felt, "is the original partnership agreement signed by both myself and Mr. Brooks. It clearly states that ownership of LocalLink is split 50-50ths. This document is notarized and witnessed, and it proves that Mr. Brooks has been attempting to cut me out of the company illegally. For the first time since this nightmare began, Elliot's mask cracked. His smirk vanished, replaced by wide-eyed disbelief. His lawyer scrambled, demanding to see the document. Monica handed it over, and as they poured over the pages, I saw the color drain from Elliot's face. He hadn't just underestimated me. He'd forgotten that paper has a memory longer than any con man story. The judge examined the contract carefully. Then he looked up, his expression firm. "Mr. Brooks, this agreement is clear and binding. Your recent filings contradict the terms of this contract. Unless you can provide evidence that this agreement is invalid, which I don't see here, Mr. Carter remains a 50% owner of LocalLink." The gavel struck like thunder. For a moment, the courtroom was silent. Then whispers rippled through the crowd. The investors shifted uncomfortably. Employees exchanged glances. Everyone could see it. Elliot had tried to erase me, and he'd been caught red-handed. Elliot's attorney stammered, trying to salvage something, anything, but the damage was done. The judge's ruling was final. The state filings would be corrected, my ownership restored, and Elliot was warned that any further attempts to undermine me could result in serious legal consequences. As the session adjourned, I turned to see Elliot glaring at me, fury burning in his eyes. His carefully crafted image of control had shattered in front of the very people he wanted to impress. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, satisfaction. Not smugness, not arrogance, just a quiet, unshakable relief of knowing the truth had finally cut through the lies. But this wasn't the end. The company's future still hung in the balance, and Elliot wasn't the type to slink away quietly. If anything, the fight was only beginning, and I was ready for it. Walking out of that courtroom felt like stepping into a new life. For months, I'd been living under Elliot's shadow, doubting myself, questioning whether I was crazy to think I mattered in LocalLink's story. But now, the weight had lifted. The gavel's echo was still in my ears, and with it came clarity. I was no longer the silent coder in the corner. I was a co-founder, equal and undeniable. But Elliot wasn't finished. In the weeks that followed, he tried everything to claw back control. He held private meetings with investors, spinning the courtroom loss as a technical hiccup. He sent out carefully worded emails suggesting I was unstable and difficult to work with. At one point, he even floated the idea of buying me out for a fraction of what my ownership was worth, framing it as a gracious exit package. I ignored him. Instead, I focused on the work. Monica helped me secure access to the company's financials, accounts, and records that Elliot had hidden away. What I found was eye-opening. Reckless spending, questionable consulting fees, and a pattern of decisions that prioritized his ego over the company's growth. When investors saw the truth laid bare, their loyalty shifted. The same people Elliot had charmed with flashy presentations began to see through him. They saw me, the one who stayed up coding all night, the one who built the foundation they were standing on. For the first time, they recognized that charisma without substance is just smoke. And smoke doesn't last. The breaking point came at a quarterly investor meeting. Elliot strutted into the room, ready to pitch his grand vision, but the investors cut him off. They asked about the reckless spending. They asked why the company had been paying for luxury hotels, private parties, and consulting fees to shell companies. Elliot stumbled, deflected, tried to laugh it off. Then they turned to me. I stood, calm but resolute, and presented a roadmap I'd been quietly working on. A sustainable plan to grow LocalLink, cut unnecessary expenses, and expand to markets we hadn't tapped yet. It wasn't flashy. It was practical, solid, real. By the time I finished, the room was silent. Then one of the lead investors, a woman named Sarah Lynn, leaned forward and said, "Mr. Carter, why haven't you been leading from the start?" That was the moment Elliot knew he'd lost. Within weeks, the board voted to strip him of decision-making power. He was offered a chance to stay on in a diminished role, but his pride couldn't handle it. Elliot stormed out, resigned in a fury, and vanished in the company he had once claimed as his. And LocalLink? We soared. With him gone, the toxic drama evaporated. Employees who had been afraid to speak up suddenly felt heard. Investors doubled down on their support. Our product improved. Our client base exploded. And within 2 years, LocalLink became one of the fastest-growing platforms in the industry. Every milestone was bittersweet. Every headline, every success. It was proof that Elliot hadn't built this company alone. It was proof that I had always mattered. Sometimes, I still think back to that moment in the garage. 2 college kids hunched over laptops, dreaming of changing the world. I wonder if Elliot ever meant it, or if betrayal had been in his nature all along. But then I remind myself, it doesn't matter anymore, because when he tried to cut me out, when he thought he'd erase me for good, he forgot one thing. Paper doesn't lie, and neither does time. Elliot walked away with nothing but his ego. I walked away with a company, a future, and the quiet satisfaction of justice done right. And that is a kind of revenge sweeter than any courtroom victory.